Hello, reading room. How are you? This is Dr. Annette Feravich. Let me go close that door for a sec. Since I don't like even that little bit of buzz in the background. Unless it's in my head. There's already enough going on there. Okay, let's get to it. We are reading Conversations on Common Things by Dorothea Dix. We are on day 5, which means we will cover chapters 13, 14, and 15. Let's get that up on my preview, which it is not. That's what we were talking about a little bit about, on our Bookless classroom. If you are interested in it, and I know you all are, that's where we left off. Let's get started. Conversations 13. Mother, does coffee grow upon trees? What we call coffee is the fruit of a shrub growing to a height of 8 or 10 feet. It is propagated by seeds and is a native of Arabia. The best coffee is brought from Mocha, a seaport on the Red Sea that next in esteem is raised in the East Indian Islands and that of the lowest value in the West Indies. The berries or fruit are of somewhat an oval shape and of a dark color. When ripe, they are separated from outer red pulp and the seed dried and packed for use. Coffee is an article of late introduction into England. The earliest information which we have of its use there is in 1652. At Paris, this article was nearly unknown till 1669, and it was not a very general use. It was not in very general use in America till the middle of the 18th century. Will you now, dear mother, tell me something of the production of tea? Your attention to my instruction induces me to gratify you. Tea, like coffee, grows upon a shrub which rarely attains to a greater height than 6 feet. The leaves, when full grown, are about an inch or an inch and a half in length, tapering and of a dark, glossy color green. The flowers are not much unlike those of a wild rose. The black and green teas are not all produced from the same shrub. The leaves are plucked at different seasons, and there are various methods of curing them. There are 4 kinds of black tea and 3 of green imported from China. Tea is chiefly brought from China, Japan, and Siam. It is cultivated with some success in the West Indies, and attempts have been made in Louisiana and Florida to raise plantations, and they seem likely to succeed. But at present, it is not an article of commerce from either of the last mentioned places. How long tea has been in use among the Chinese, we are entirely ignorant, but we are informed that an infusion of the leaves in water is a common drinking among them. The use of it may first have arisen from the inhabitants of Japan reduce the leaves to a powder, which they dilute with water till it acquires nearly the consistence of soup. Tea was introduced into England by a Dutch merchant in 1610. Its use did not become general till 1666. It was imported into our country in the 18th century. I will remember what you have told me, but do inform me of what the chocolate is made, which I drink in the morning for my breakfast. Chocolate is made from the cocoa or coconut, which grows on a tree nearly resembling a cherry tree. It has abundance of leaves similar to those of the orange tree. The blossoms are small, regular, and similar to the rose, but scentless. They are saffron colored and very beautiful. Each fruit contains from 15 to 25 small nuts or almonds, and each is enclosed in a thin yellow skin. These trees grow in South America, Jamaica, and in some other countries. It flourishes throughout the year, but especially near the summer and winter solstices. The Spaniards first introduced the use of chocolate into Europe. The natives of some parts of South America use the cocoa nut for their common food. The nuts which is used in the manufacture of pomatum, etc. Spanish chocolate is often perfumed with the fragrant seeds of the vanilla, a climbing American plant. The shells of the chocolate nut boiled in water afford a pleasant beverage. We must have sugar, dear mother, to sweeten our tea and coffee. I should like to know from what it is made. Sugar is chiefly made from the sugar cane, a tall, slender plant or reed, which is cultivated to great extent in the West Indies, where it was introduced from China or some other part of southern Asia about 3 centuries ago. When the canes are cut, the leaves are thrown aside as useless, and the stems or canes are divided into pieces of about a yard in length. They are then tied in bundles and carried to mills, where they are bruised between wooden rollers covered with iron. The juice which flows from them into a receiver is conveyed into boilers, where after the process of clarifying, boiling, and separating the scum or impure parts of the liquid, the thickened syrup granulates and is drained and becomes what is called muscovado, or raw sugar. The molasses or treacle drained from the sugar is applied to many uses in cookery, and a spirituous liquor called rum is distilled from it. Sugar is not refined at the mills, but is prepared for use by sugar bakers, either in the United States or in Europe. This is done by first dissolving the sugar into water, boiling the solution in lime water, and clarifying it either with bullock's blood, calcined bone, or the white of an egg, and then straining it through woolen bags. After the liquid is evaporated sufficiently by boiling, it is poured into conical molds of unglazed earthenware. Gross. It is made of bullock's blood? That's disgusting. Here it concretes into a white mass, leaving that part of the syrup which is not crystallized to pass off through a hole in the apex of the cone. The liquid thus drained off is called sugar baker's molasses. Next, the broad end of the cone is covered with moist clay, the water from which penetrates into the sugar and carries off all the impurities which would otherwise discolor it. It is then carefully dried and receives the name of loaf or lump sugar. When sugar was first introduced into Europe, it was employed only as a medicine. Is sugar manufactured from any other substances besides sugarcane? Yes, some vegetables yield it in considerable quantities. It may be extracted from some of our garden vegetables, as the parsnip or beet. Sugar is also made from the sap of a tree called rock maple, which flourishes in many parts of the United States, especially in New England. Will you describe the tree and the process of making sugar from its sap, mother? The maple tree grows usually to the height of from 40 to 50 feet. It blossoms in the spring before it puts forth its leaves. No tree can be more beautiful than the maple when it is covered with foliage. We have them right out here. They're very beautiful, and on my property. Its leaves are of the most brilliant green and very thick set. The branches are so sweet that they afford sustenance for cattle. The wood makes a hot and bright fire. In March usually, or if the season be very cold, the 1st of April, the sugar maker taps his trees. This is done by boring with an auger into the heart of the trunks about 2 feet deep from the ground. He then inserts pieces of grooved wood or little ducts, by which the sap that flows from the wounds in the tree is conveyed into troughs or buckets placed to receive it. These the sugar makers carefully watch that the sap may not overflow and run to waste, and when full, empty them into large boilers. After this, the process is nearly the same as in evaporating the juices of the sugar cane. The molasses strained from maple sugar is very rich, and many prefer it to honey. The sap, when fermented, yields a spirituous liquor and also affords excellent vinegar. I am much obliged to you, Mother, for this interesting information, and if you please, will read the anecdote you told me you had reserved for my amusement. It is not applicable to our conversation this evening, but you may read it and will, I trust, derive from it a useful lesson. Here is the book. A lady whose education had been very much neglected in her youth obtained a situation at the court of Brunswick as lady of honor to the Duchess. She had not been long there before she perceived that the conversations frequently turned on subjects of which she was entirely ignorant, and that those ladies had most of the Duchess's attention and favor who were best acquainted with books. She regretted for the first time in her life the neglect of her own education, and although she had hitherto considered that kind of knowledge which is derived from reading as unbecoming and unnecessary for a woman of rank, she now saw that learning was valued at court and resolved to study that she might be thought worthy of some consideration. She accordingly mentioned this resolution to the Duchess, desiring at the same time that she would lend her a book to begin with. The Duchess applauded her design and sent her a dictionary as one of the most useful of books. Some days after, Her Highness inquired how she relished it. Infinitely, replied the studious lady. It is the most delightful book I ever saw. The sentences are all short and easily understood, and the letters charming, arranged in ranks, like soldiers on the parade, whereas in some books which I have seen, they are mingled together in a confused manner like a mere mob, so that it is no pleasure to look at them and very difficult to know what they mean. I am no longer surprised, added she, at the satisfaction your Royal Highness takes in study. Ah, Mother, how very ignorant that lady was, and how much to be pitied. I am sure I shall study now, for what society shall I fit for when I am older if I do not know more about books than she did? Neither you, nor my father, nor Henry will love me at all, nor will anybody else be happy with me. I shall not forget this anecdote, and should like to read it to everyone who does not love to study. Practical questions. Describe the growth of coffee. When was it first introduced into America? From what countries do we receive our tea? How many kinds are there? What is chocolate? What are shells? From what is sugar chiefly obtained? How is it manufactured? How is it refined? Do any vegetables yield sugar? Describe the process of sugar making from maple syrup. Conversation 14. I thought today, dear Mother, that I would not forget to ask you from what trees and countries spices are obtained. If you please, I should like to hear this evening. I have no objections to making them the topic of this evening's conversation, and we'll begin with nutmeg, as being the richest of all spices. The nutmeg tree grows as large as a pear. Its leaves resemble those of the peach tree. The blossoms have a pleasant odor and resemble the rose. The fruit is about the size of a walnut and has 2 barks. The first is thick, the second, which is very thin and of a reddish yellow, is called mace and is a rich and fragrant spice. Nutmeg grow plentifully in the Asiatic island of Banda, which belongs to the Dutch. The tree produces 3 crops annually. The harvests are gathered in the months of April, August, and December. That's convenient, isn't it? Cloves, which rank next, abound in the Molucca or Spice Islands. When pulled from the tree, the only care they require is to dry and preserve them from the air. When first gathered, they are of a reddish color, but become brown by drying. When fresh, they yield by pressure a fragrant oil, which is highly esteemed. The Dutch monopolized this trade. Allspice or pimento is a native of Jamaica and grows upon a low shrub. It is not much valued. Do not forget cinnamon, mother. The cinnamon tree grows to the height of 20 or 30 feet. The leaves are oval, the flower small and fragrant, and succeeded by a fruit resembling the olive. There are 9 or 10 species of the cinnamon tree, and the spice is, the bark of the young and tender branches. The bark of the cassia tree so much resembles cinnamon that it is often substituted for it. The outer bark is stripped from the tree, and then the inner, which is the spice we use. From the bark, a valuable oil is extracted, and the roots of the tree yield gum camphor, though this is not the only species of tree which produces that drug. We are told that the oil or tallow extracted from the fruit of the cinnamon tree is manufactured into candles in the island of Ceylon. This tree is now successfully cultivated in Jamaica and several neighboring islands. Now I suppose I'm acquainted with all the spices? Oh no, there is ginger. I have never thought of that. Ginger is an aromatic root of considerable use both as a spice and medicine. The plant grows 2 or 3 feet high. Its leaves are long, large, and of dark green, the flower from which is a kind of spike, are fragrant and beautiful colored. The ginger plant grows wild in several parts of Asia and is cultivated to considerable extent in some of the East and West India islands. The root does not grow deep in the earth, but spreads just below the surface and is prepared for use in 2 ways. When intended for what is called ginger, it is picked, scraped, washed, and dried in the sun. Black ginger is prepared by cleansing the roots and immersing them in boiling water. This last process is much more expeditious and less expensive than the other. The black color of the last arises from the losing some portion of its essential oil. When the roots are intended for sweetmeats, they are dug when quite young and tender and make a fine preserve of a hot, pungent taste, which is much esteemed. Speaking of the hot taste of ginger reminds me of pepper. Will you tell me how it grows? Pepper is the fruit of a climbing plant and grows in clusters of from 20 to 30 grains each. The berries, I'm just looking at a couple things. The berries are green when young, but when ripe of a bright red color. They are considered fit for gathering as soon as they begin to turn red, and are spread on mats in the sun to dry, which renders them black and shriveled. When ground in this state, the fruit or berries receives the name of black pepper. To make white pepper, the best and soundest grains are selected and steeped in salt water for the space of a week, at the end of which time the skins burst and the grains are taken from the water and spread to dry. The skins are then easily rubbed off, after which the pepper is reproduced to powder and packed for sale. The black pepper is more pungent than this, much of the strength being in the skins. Another method of taking off the black skins is by covering the kernels with lime, which causes them to fall off. The last process is followed in Borneo. Pepper is imported both from the East and West Indies. It is used as a spice in cooking and as a medicine. While we are speaking of these things, it may be well to tell you that capers are the buds of a shrub of the same name growing plentifully in France and in the Indies. They are gathered with quite green and spread in a dark place to wither and then steeped in vinegar with the addition of a little salt. The bark of the caper shrub is medicinal. What is curry, Mother? Curry or curry is a composition of ginger, pepper, and turmeric. It is eaten boiled with rice or made into sauce for meats. I made a list the other day of several questions I wish to ask you, Mother. We shall have time this evening. Will you tell me all I wish to know, all I ask you, Mother? As for time, I suppose we shall have enough between now and your hour for bed to prolong our conversation, but I shall not promise to answer all your questions till I know what they are. Propose them, and I shall then be better able to decide. The first is about tobacco. I was reminded of that by seeing the gardener burn the leaves over some plants of the garden to destroy the insects which were devouring them. A reasonable question to begin with, certainly, and one I cannot object to answering. Tobacco is an Indian plant much cultivated in Virginia and other of the southern states. It produces large leaves which at a proper time are cut, spread on the ground, or hung up to dry, after which the leaves are prepared for chewing or else made into cigars for smoking or into snuff, which latter preparation is made by reducing the fibers to a fine powder by means of mill and adding some sort of perfume. Tobacco was first, that's interesting. I wonder if the perfume is nicotine and why they added it. Tobacco was first used in England about the year 1586, where it was carried by the celebrated Sir Walter Raleigh. We are told by some English writer that one day, while Sir Walter was smoking his pipe, his servant came into the room with a pitcher of water, and seeing his master enveloped in a cloud of smoke, in much alarm, threw the water over him. I think Sir Walter could not have been much obliged to his domestic for giving him such a bath. Probably not for the bath, but certainly for convincing proof of his servant's zeal in affording such prompt assistance when he supposed it so much needed. But I wish to tell you that in Turkey, many, instead of chewing tobacco, make free use of opium. What is that, Mother? Hold on, daughter. The juice which exudes from the seed vessels and bulbous roots of poppies after the plant has done flowering. The opium or poppy juice is at first of a milky color, but after exposure to the air a short time it changes into a dark brown or black and gradually hardens into a kind of gum. With us, it is chiefly used medicinally and is prepared in various ways. Made into a liquid, it is called laudanum, and if taken in too large doses is a certain and deadly poison. Great quantities of opium are imported from East Indies and Turkey. Are there any other plants which have similar properties to the poppy? Yes, many. Our common garden lettuce is among the number, but it is much less powerful than opium. The milky juice contained in the leaves is in taste not unlike that drug. Hops, too, possess the same narcotic qualities. The farina, or dust that may be shaken from ripe hop blossoms when taken in small quantities, causes sleep and is of considerable efficacy in coughs and other slight diseases. Are not hops used in making beer? Yes, they give it a lively and pleasant bitter taste. Hops are extremely cultivated in England and in some of our northern states. The English have been long famous for the excellency of their porter and ale. Next on my list is starch, Mother. I thought it might be a preparation of flour, for I know that paste is made of it for various uses. Starch or fecula is not a preparation of flour, but may be obtained from wheat before it is ground. The grain is usually a little broken and soaked in water for several hours. The liquid is then strained and separated from the coarser parts of the wheat. This liquid, after standing for some hours, deposits a sediment in the bottom of the vessel, which is starch. The water is poured off and pure water added continually till the starch is quite white. It is then collected and dried in the sun. Starch may be obtained from the other vegetables, particularly from arrowroot and potatoes, which last roots yield it abundantly. How is potato starch made? The roots, when quite ripe, are washed, cleaned, and prepared, then reduced to a pulp and passed through the same process as I described for making it of wheat. There is a large manufactory of potato starch at Wilton, New Hampshire, where it is made of as good quality as that obtained from the best wheat. I will now tell you, while we are speaking of starch, that hair powder is chiefly made from it, and that the more delicate and nicer kind of perfumed with orris root, which is chiefly imported from Leghorn. The orris plant grows low, has long pointed leaves of a beautiful green, and is adorned with white fragrant blossoms. The root is employed both as a perfume and medicine. Now that I have answered your proposed questions, I bid you good night, my daughter, wishing you quiet and refreshing slumbers. And you the same, dear mother. Practical questions. Where are cloves chiefly found? Describe the cinnamon tree, the nutmeg tree. What is ginger? How is pepper prepared for use? What are preserved capers? What is tobacco? What is opium? Do any plants possess similar qualities? What is starch? How made? From what is hair powder made? Conversations 15. Mother, and the last one for today, reading room. Mother, will you tell me now from what oil is procured? Yes, willingly. You must first be informed that oils may be divided into 3 classes: animal, vegetable, and mineral oil. What animals yield oil? Several species of fish, but we are chiefly indebted to the whale for the oil that lights our parlors and enliven our streets. What are vegetable oils? All those which are extracted from fruits and the seeds of plants. That which is obtained from the olive is much esteemed. Immense quantities of this oil are exported annually from Italy and France, and some also from Spain. The land of Canaan yielded olive oil very abundantly, and from thence much of it was conveyed into Egypt as a tribute to the Egyptian kings. A valuable oil is extracted from the almond nut, the tree which, now this is interesting too, because we've got Arafat and Prime Minister Menachem Begin, who I think, and I'm not saying that right, but who are examples of fighting over this land, but it's Egypt and the Palestinians. So that would be basically dominating that area. A valuable oil is extracted from the almond nut. The tree which yields this fruit flourishes in the south of Europe. Walnuts and butternuts afford abundance of oils. The date-bearing palm tree, which Dr. Clark asserts is the most valuable tree on earth, flourishes in the western central parts of Africa and in some other places. The inhabitants of a considerable part of Egypt, Persia, and Arabia subsist almost entirely on its fruits. They boast, too, of its medicinal qualities. Camels feed upon the date stone. From the leaves of the tree are made couches, baskets, bags, mats, and brushes. From the branches, fences for gardens, and cages for poultry. From the fibers of the boughs are made thread, ropes, and rigging. From this sap is prepared a rich syrup, which may be converted into a spirituous liquor. Again, the body of the tree furnishes fuel. And lastly, a valuable oil is extracted from the fruit, which is used for many purposes and among others very extensively in the manufacture of soap. Mother, pray describe the growth and appearance of this valuable tree. It rises to a great height and is remarkably straight. The trunk of the tree is not solid like most large trees, but its center is filled with pith, round which is a tough bark full of strong fibers. When young, these are very pliable, but as the tree becomes old, they harden and are more stringy. The leaves are closely joined to the bark, and when the tree is full grown, they are 6 or 8 feet long, and very broad when spread open. They are used for covering the tops of houses, etc. The fruit grows beneath these leaves and is of a sweet, agreeable taste. The tree is in its greatest vigor 30 years after it is planted and continues in full bearing 70 years longer, yielding all the while 300 or 400 pounds weight of dates yearly. Some of these trees have lately been brought from Africa to Florida, where the mildness of the climate gives encouragement to attempt their cultivation. I shall always remember the date-bearing palm tree, but can you tell me what seeds afford oil? Very many plants produce seeds containing valuable oils, among which are the rapeseed, flaxseed, etc. That which is extracted from this last is much used by painters for its drying qualities. The method for purifying this oil, or indeed that obtained from any seeds, is this: a 236 gallons of oil is added 6 pounds oil of vitriol, which mixture is well stirred 3 hours. After this, 6 pounds fuller's earth mixed with 14 pounds best lime is added. The whole is kept in agitation 3 hours longer. The mixture is then introduced into a boiler containing a quantity of water equal to that of the oil, and the whole gently stirred and boiled 3 hours. After this, the oil is gradually cooled and is found quite pure. Sunflower seeds yield oil. A bushel will afford a gallon. This is used like olive oil on salads as well as medicinally and in the mixture of paints. That's interesting. Varnishes, etc. I must also, while speaking of the seeds, inform you of the very many useful purposes to which this plant is applied. The sprouts are eaten with oil and salt. In Portugal, bread is made of the seeds, as is also gruel, and besides yielding oil, they fatten fowls. The leaves are excellent food for cows and sheep. The stems may be used for bean and hop poles or any other climbing plants. They likewise serve, when dry, for faggots to kindle fires. I had no idea, Mother, this plant, I had no idea there's another use for the word, whatever. I had no idea, Mother, that this plant was of any use except for the seeds which it yields and which I give to my little birds. Now you are informed of its many uses, my dear. You must remember them, but we must not forget the castor in our enumeration of plants which afford oil. This plant grows to the height of 5 or 6 feet. It blossoms in clusters, and from the seeds or beans is extracted the castor oil of so much use in medicine. The plant flourishes in the south of Europe, in the United States, and other countries. There are many other plants which afford oil, but I have enumerated the most important of them. What are mineral oils, Mother? There are 2 kinds of mineral oils, naphtha and petroleum. They are distinguished by the name of bitumens and are always inflammable or easy to take fire. Gosh, isn't that funny? And always are inflammable or easy to take fire. We call that flammable, don't we? I didn't know. But it rings a bell. I shall also describe to you tar mineral, pitch, and asphaltum, which are allied to them in substance. The 2 first named substances, that is tar and mineral pitch, are similar in quality, though not in color. Mineral tar is found abundantly in the island of Trinidad. It is mixed with common pitch and used to cover the bottoms of ships and effectually excludes the water from penetrating the timber. Mineral pitch, of which there are 3 kinds, is applied to the same uses. It is lighter colored and harder than mineral tar. Asphaltum is a black or brownish black color and is found floating abundantly on the lake of Asphaltum, otherwise called the Dead Sea. Wow! Maybe that's why some of those people are called black-headed people. They went swimming in the Dead Sea. Its principal use is the composition of varnishes, especially that kind used by copper plate engravers. I wonder if they did use that to get their scalps all shiny. And who knows, maybe it got rid of the hair too. What is naphtha, Mother? I have learned from my geography that it is found near Badku in the province of Shirvan. You are right, and I need not tell you that these places are near the west end of the Caspian Sea, Mother. But I should not have known that if Henry had not told me and pointed them out on my map. I am glad you give your kind brother credit for his assistance. We've also looked at that on the map in our Bookless classroom. You know, it would have been taking undeserved merit to yourself had you left me to suppose your information was acquired altogether by your own research. But to resume our subject, naphtha is found also in Japan and Italy. It is of a light brown color, perfectly fluid and transparent, and is burnt in lamps by the Persians and Japanese and the Italians. Along the Tigris, springs of naphtha and bitumen are found in great numbers. The black bitumen serves instead of oil. The white is used as a drug. Their light boats are made of wicker work and pitched over with this substance, which floats in the river in such abundance that the boatmen often set fire to it, and the river presents the magnificent spectacle of a floating sheet of fire. In petroleum, what is that? Petroleum is neither so transparent as naphtha nor so pure. Its color is various, being in some places found brown, in others red, and again in others green. This oil is found in different parts of England, particularly in Shropshire and Colebrook. It is met with in Hungary, in the south of Asia, and it is also found in the Burman Empire. The Burmans obtained petroleum by digging wells in those places where, from the nature of the soil, they are pretty sure of finding it. They are usually obliged to dig. I saw that in Spain, South Spain. You could see the oil was in the land, in the sand. Usually obliged to dig many feet deep for it. When they come to the oil, which flows from the rocks and through beds of mineral coal as water into a well, they proceed to lade into buckets, which are drawn to the surface by machinery. The oil thus obtained is a dingy green color and fragrant odor. The natives apply it to many uses. It is too thick to burn in lamps and hardens by long exposure to the air. In the Duchy of Modena in Italy are springs of fragrant mineral oil similar to petroleum. There is a spring of water in the same duchy upon which swims such quantities of oil that 10 or 15 pounds may be collected from its surface weekly. And what is still more wonderful, oil is frequently found to rise upon the surface of the water near the coast of Naples. This, we are told, is carefully collected by the boatmen and sold at Naples to considerable profit. Are there no springs in America which yield oil, Mother? Yes, many have been found in different parts of the United States, but little is now known of their properties. There is one in the northern part of Pennsylvania, upon which constantly flows oil resembling petroleum, which, being considered efficacious in rheumatic complaints, is collected for druggists. Little other use is made of it. What more have you to tell me of oils, Mother? Nothing tonight, my daughter. Go to bed, and in your prayers to your heavenly Father, forget not to thank him for the invaluable treasure with which he has endowed you, a thinking and improvable mind. Practical questions. How many kinds of oil are there? What are vegetable oils? From what animals is oil obtained? What are mineral oils? Describe the palm tree. What are the uses of the sunflower plant? What is naphtha? What is petroleum? Where is it found? So we will continue tomorrow in our last of our 3 days on here in the classroom. I know I'm all wrapped up when I have this nice new stretchable, flexible shirt on I got from Walmart. I really like it. Thanks so much for joining me here in the classroom. It is day 250. Wow, that is a real accomplishment, I must say. And also, I want to say that just look out. You better not be maligning my boys. That's all I have to say. Just don't be maligning my boys with the same kind of McLaren bullcrap that you gave to me and possibly my husband. And for what reason would that be? Because that's going to come out. That's going to come out. Dr. Annette Feravich, thanks so much for joining me here at day 250. It is September 24th here in the classroom. I will see you tomorrow as we have just completed Hump Day. Thanks for being here, making our minds, our bodies, and our spirits healthier.